We're back to the Total Education Celebrity Show on the Total Education Network. Again, TotalTutor.net for more information. Twitter, Total Tutor, Neil S. Haley, Facebook, LinkedIn, Neil Haley, Instagram, Total Tutor. And always excited in the Celebrity Show when we talk about NFL players and the illustrious Hall of Famers. I tell you, I've had 2 NFL Hall of Famers on before, but this guy is fantastic, and he's doing such fantastic things in the community. So I want to welcome the program from the Purple People Eaters, the Minnesota Vikings Hall of Famer from 1967 and 1981. He played in the NFL. Alan Page, and I'm going to call you Justice Page. Justice Page, thanks for calling, and it's an honor to have you on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So for our audience out there that might not know your illustrious career, tell us a little bit about your background, then we're going to get right into your foundation.
Well, as you noted, I played professional football from 1967 through 1981, 11 and a half years with the Minnesota Vikings and another 3.5 with the Chicago Bears. I have an undergraduate degree from the University of Notre Dame. I grew up in Canton, Ohio, practiced law for a while, and for the last little over 21 years have been serving on the Minnesota Supreme Court. I've had the privilege to serve on the Minnesota Supreme Court.
Well, and I think that's where it comes down to why you value education, Justice Page. And we've talked about lots of life after football for NFL players. And, and your career, guys really were smart, because you guys weren't making as much money as the players today. Definitely a lot less. You really focused on careers. You did on the off season. You did internships. You did different things to make different connections. I talked to Rocky Blyer about this. I've talked to Dwayne Woodruff about this, and all these different things. And they basically have told me, and then other athletes as well, from Andy Russell, that you have to have a different. You had a different mindset when playing in those days. That you definitely were going to have to. You couldn't just live on your salary that you made during your career. You have to kind of have that as a stepping stone to life after football. Isn't that true, Justice Page?
Well, that's part of it. But in my case, I was pretty fortunate because I had, at least in my own mind's eye, I had a life before I started playing football, and there were things that I, as a child growing up, was looking forward to doing as an adult, and one of those things was the practice of law. I had that as a vision long before playing football ever occurred to me. So that once I started playing football, I still had that in the back of my mind, and indeed that was as much a motivator as anything. Because, even today's players, it doesn't really matter how much money you make. At some point, your football career is going to end, and you're going to have a life after that, a life that's far longer, generally, than the football life. And I just can't imagine sitting around with nothing to do, and certainly with nothing productive to do. And so for me, getting my law degree and preparing for the future for that time when the football career ended was critically important. And it should be important for today's players, again, no matter how much money they make.
It's so true, and I think that's where we're going to go right into this value of education. Being an education talk show, starting before I really got into the whole celebrity thing, still do the education thing for sure, and have authors as well. I've just learned so much about how important foundations are to help our education system. We're struggling in certain areas, especially inner cities, for education. I would say in the United States, I'm not going to have the outlook that some people say that our public education system is broken and needs fixed. Certain areas of our education system needs fixed. But tell us a little bit about why you started the Page Education Foundation.
Well, it's been 26 years ago now that my wife Diane, and I sat down and talked about trying to figure out what we could do to change the course of people's lives. we've been fortunate both on and off the athletic field, and it seemed to us that when you're that fortunate, you have to make some contribution to those who come after you. And so, actually, it started the idea, the specific idea for starting the foundation started the night that I found out that I was going to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We sat down with some friends and talked about how we could make it even more meaningful than simply recognition for past accomplishments. And we came up with the idea of an education foundation. And the reason for education was really from the time I started playing football. I got put on a pedestal, if you will, and would be asked to talk to young children about the importance of education and all that. And coupled with growing up in Canton, Ohio, at a time when there were a lot of great football players who performed just phenomenally on the athletic field, but when their high school or college playing days were over, they ended up back in Canton hanging out in the street corner.
Yeah.
That didn't make any sense to me, even as a youngster. And ultimately, I concluded that what we were seeing was an academic problem, not an athletic problem. And so it was a natural for me to gravitate towards in terms of trying to make a contribution to those who come after me and after us, make a contribution in the area of education. And so we sat down that night with some friends and talked about what we might be able to do. We came up with the idea of a foundation that encouraged, motivated, and would assist young men and women of color pursue their education beyond high school. And as you alluded to, the problem of the education gap in our inner cities with young men and women of color is just staggering.
Yes.
And we thought we would try to do something about that by, as I say, encouraging, motivating, and assisting. And we do that two ways. One, by providing financial assistance for young people who want to pursue their education beyond high school. Indeed, our goal is to encourage young people to pursue their education beyond high school. And for those we select, our grant recipients, we call them paid scholars. We require them to go back into the community where they come from or back into the community where they go to school to work with young children, kindergarten through 8th grade, specifically in the area of education, as tutors, mentors, and role models. And by their service to young children, they become really shining examples for those young children of somebody using education as a tool to achieve their hopes and dreams. And in addition, for the scholars, they benefit from having made a contribution and had an impact on some young person's life. And we're pretty proud of the 6,000 plus young men and women who have served as paid scholars. You know, they go to schools, we're local in the sense that all of our students are Minnesota students going to Minnesota schools, but they go to some, I think this year we have scholars in some 49 different post-secondary academic institutions across Minnesota, from trade schools to the University of Minnesota to St. Olaf and Carleton College, you know, some of the best private schools in the country, and everything in between.
That's great.
Our scholars are they range from the best and the brightest to those who maybe have struggled along the way. You know, not everybody wants to or needs to be a lawyer or a doctor, although we have some of those. But we also have the students who, you know, who maybe didn't think they could do it, but got accepted someplace, and we're trying to encourage them just as much as we encourage those students at the top of the class.
Justice Page, that's fantastic, and I want to touch upon the great summary of your program, and I'm very impressed, and I'm sure with your education background and especially being a justice that you've really put time and effort into this foundation because you're doing it right. You're hands-on with your wife in this idea. You see that the specifics. Go ahead.
I was just going to say our goal is to create the scholarships and have the scholars do the work with young children. And that's all we're interested in. We're not, we don't need the pat on the back, although it's never a bad thing to get it.
Yes.
But it's not about us. It's about those young people and their future, and ultimately the future of our country.
But you're making the change, Justice Page, and this is what you're doing. You're taking the kids that are working the hardest or really want to go on to the school after high school, and then you're saying, well, to get one of these scholarships, you have to give back in this community. You have to go to your community and give back wherever you're attending school or wherever in the Minnesota area so that they truly can take whatever degree or whatever job or career or trade they choose and then understand the importance of with their family life growing up, how they're going to be able to do it in their community to help others to see the value of education. And by putting them in the K through 8 environment, what it does, Justice Page, is it gives them that really, they grow up very fast being a mentor. Getting to work with kids.
Absolutely.
Transforms lives. It truly does.
It absolutely does. And, the foundation has a motto, creating heroes through education and service. And every one of our scholars is a hero to me. We talk about athletic heroes and all of that, and that's fine. But the real heroes are those people across this state and across this country who are changing the lives of other people for the better. And so we're pretty excited about the work that our foundation does.
Well, we're talking to Alan Page from the Purple People Eaters Hall of Famer about his foundation, the Page Education Foundation. And Justice Page, I've talked to many people about foundations that are athletes and celebrities, but you have it. You got it right. You have the model. That model works, and I think it would work in anything involving mentorship. Mentorship changes both the mentor and the mentee, and that if we can do this even in our public education systems, the model that your foundation does across the country with other athletes, foundations, or celebrities, or just everyday foundations, then the people who get these scholarships are going to remember to come back and help. Because a lot of times... Go ahead. What were you going to say?
As I say, absolutely. It one of the things that surprised me over the years is the number of our scholars who started off their post-secondary education either not knowing what they would end up doing or not, or having a specific area in mind, and because of their involvement in working with young children as tutors and mentors, end up working as a lifetime goal, working with young people, either as teachers or as social workers or what have you, but all because they were involved as paid scholars working with young children.
Well, you have the model, and I'm sure April 5th is just a very unbelievable day for you, 26th anniversary of your foundation. Did you think that it was going to be as life-changing when you first started this, to be sitting here now talking to me 26 years later and see how many lives you've changed?
We had no idea. We thought, if we could, that first year, if we could raise $100,000, we could have a tremendous impact. And, that was 26 years ago. That first year we ended up with 10 paid scholars. This year we've got 502. And as I say, over the years we've had in excess of 6,000. We couldn't have begun to imagine the impact that our scholars have had or that our foundation has had.
I'm sure you have a lot of people to thank through this whole 26-year journey. Are there anybody that that have been really with you from the beginning that you would like to thank? I know for sure your wife, for sure on the foundation, but anyone else as well?
Well, she has been critical to the success. She's the one that for the past 20 years since I've been serving on the court has ensured that the foundation is financially stable. Because of my role in the court, I can't be involved, and I'm not involved in the fundraising that the foundation does. And she's just worked tirelessly. But we've also had, we have a pretty lean operation. We have 4 employees, and I think even with the 4 individuals, all of them aren't working full time. So the workload is tremendous. If you could imagine keeping track of 500 young people,
yes,
at any one time,
definitely,
it's a significant challenge. And so our staff has been. We couldn't be happier over the years. We couldn't be more pleased with the people that have supported us.
That's awesome for sure, and best of luck to continue the success of the foundation for a long time to come. One thing I would say to you, Justice Page, is if you could take this in a bottle and put this in many different cities across the country, this type of model, it would be fantastic for sure.
It's a model that works and would work anywhere. And our formula is pretty simple, but it takes a lot of effort. We've had 1 or 2 occasions where others have either talked about or tried to take our model and use it in other places, and for whatever reason, it hasn't worked out. It really does take a significant commitment, and you can't just sit down and say this is going to happen. You have to sit down and make it happen, and you have to make it happen every day. It's a lot like playing football, if you will, because you can go out and play one day, but that day is over, and you've got to go out and play again the next day. And it's the same way with this. I think people tend to think that once you get it going, it'll take care of itself. It won't take care of itself.
Definitely.
It has to be nurtured and worked with. And we've been fortunate enough to be able to do that.
Well, you definitely have. Really like to have you back on the show, especially if you have other events you're promoting or other projects or updates on some of the success of your foundation with the kids and stories. Definitely like to have you back in a couple months to reach out to you and see how things are going. But I mean, best of luck again on April 5th. And you're doing tremendous stuff. And when I do talk to other foundations, because I talk to lots of NFL players and different celebrities that have foundations, if they have an education one, I'll definitely share this model with them, because this model absolutely works. Absolutely, and if there's somebody that, wants to contact us and talk about it, we'll be happy to talk with them. Okay, so where can we find information on your foundation, Justice Page, and learn more about you as well? It's our website is page, page-ed.org, page-ed.org. And if all else fails, just Google Alan Page, and the foundation is generally the first thing that pops up. Oh, that's the most important thing for sure. I really enjoyed talking to you, and just really enthused by talking to a celebrity athlete who's doing great things and has an education model that works. And I really believe that. I believe that we need to have these mentor tutors all over the place in every school, working with kids especially that are almost close to the same age, one-on-one, because that's where the success is going to come in the classroom. It's not going to come from 30, 35 kids and one teacher, for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks again for calling, Justice.
Great. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. You're listening to Total Education, Celebrity Show on the Total Education Network, and we'll be back in just a moment.